to America Reads Fun Learning Activities. We are college students who create learning activities for kids. Our fun activities are focused on reading, writing, and math. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mackenzie, and in today's video we are going to be learning about textual evidence. Specifically, we are going to focus on how we can use textual evidence in our writing when drawing conclusions from various texts. First things first, we need to learn some new important vocabulary. We are going to be learning about textual evidence and its two types, implicit and explicit evidence, context clues, what inferences are, and the guidelines of citations. I have here a couple of posters to help us remember our definitions. Please feel free to take out a piece of paper, jot down some notes to help you remember these definitions. Up first, we have textual evidence. So what is textual evidence? I know you're all so curious. Well, textual evidence is the information derived directly from a text that you can use to back up and support your claims. The types of textual evidence, as stated earlier, are implicit and explicit. Up first, we have explicit evidence. This is evidence that is clearly stated in a text. For example, these would be things like facts, statistics, and even descriptions of some things directly from the author. For instance, a story may say, "The car was red." This would be an example of explicit evidence, as the text is saying directly that the car is red, which is how we would get that information. Our second type of evidence is implicit evidence. This is something that is only suggested and implied. It is not clearly stated like explicit evidence is. An example of this would be, John yelled "ouch" after falling off his bike. This is an example of implicit evidence, as we can infer from this statement that John was hurt when he fell off his bike, but it does not say that he got hurt or was feeling pain. But we know from his yell of "ouch" that he did in fact feel pain. Up next, we have context clues, which are really important because they are clues found within the text that help you understand the implicit evidence. Next, we have inferences. An inference is a conclusion based on the text, specifically information and evidence gathered from the text along with your own reasoning. You use text evidence to back up your inferences you make about the text. And lastly, we have citation guidelines. So when citing a direct quote from a text, you must enclose it with quotation marks. You must also include the author's name and the page number of which you found the quote. If you use the author's name before introducing the quote, you do not have to include the author's name in your citation at the end. When paraphrasing, you do not need citation marks. This is when you take what the author said and put it in your own words. But you still must include the author's name somewhere and the page number of which you found it. Now we are going to look at a few text excerpts and practice citing some textual evidence. So let's get to it. For our story, I've chosen an excerpt from The Giver. On this side, we have some discussion questions that we are going to answer after reading the story. You can go ahead and pause the video now to read over the questions so that you can think about them while we read the story. Let's get started. The story is by Lewis Lowry. It was almost December and Jonas was beginning to be frightened. No, wrong word, Jonas thought. Frightened meant that deep, sickening feeling of something terrible about to happen. Frightened was the way he felt a year ago when an unidentified aircraft had overflown the community twice. He had seen it both times. Squinting toward the sky, he had seen the sleek jet, almost a blur at its high speed, go past, and a second later heard the blast of the sound that followed. Then one more time, a moment later, from the opposite direction, the same plane. At first he had only been fascinated. He had never seen aircraft so close, for it was against the rules for pilots to fly over the community. Occasionally, when supplies were delivered by cargo planes to the landing field across the river, the children rode their bicycles to the riverbank and watched, intrigued, the unloading and then the takeoff directed to the west, always away from the community. But the aircraft a year ago had been different. It was not a squat, fat-bellied cargo plane, but a needle-nosed, single-pilot jet. Jonas, looking around anxiously, had seen others, adults as well as children, stop what they were doing and wait, confused, for an explanation of the frightening event. Then all the citizens had been ordered to go into the nearest building and stay there. Immediately, the rasping voice through the speakers had said, "Leave your bicycles where they are." Instantly, obediently, Jonas had dropped his bike on its side on the path behind its family's dwelling. He had run indoors and stayed there alone. His parents were both at work, and his little sister, Lily, was at the child care center where she spent her after-school hours. Looking through the front window, he had seen no people, none of the busy afternoon crew of street cleaners, landscape workers, and food delivery people who usually populate the community at that time of day. He saw only the abandoned bikes here and there on their sides. An upturned wheel on one was still revolving slowly. He had been frightened then. The sense of his own community's silent waiting had made his stomach churn. He had trembled. Our first question is it normal for planes to fly over the community? Circle the correct answer, yes or no. Well, let's look at the text. It says that when the planes flew over the community, Jonah had been frightened. It also says that it is against the rules for pilots to fly over the community. From these two pieces of textual evidence, we can gather that it is not normal for the planes to fly over the community. The next question follows the first. It says, which of the following pieces of textual evidence best supports the answer to the previous question? A, he had never seen aircraft so close for it was against the rules for pilots to fly over the community. B, occasionally, when supplies were delivered by cargo planes to the landing field across the river, the children rode their bikes to the riverbank and watched. Or C, Jonas looked around anxiously, had seen others, adults as well as children, stop what they were doing and wait. Let's look at the first piece of textual evidence. He had never seen aircraft so close, for it was against the rules for pilots to fly over the community. As you can see, we underlined this earlier to support our answer, which means this could be a good answer. Let's look at B and C just to make sure that A is the correct answer. B, it says, occasionally, when supplies were delivered by cargo planes to the landing field across the river, the children rode their bicycles to the riverbank and watched. This makes it seem like watching planes is a frequent event for the community. However, it specifies the landing field across the river, which is not over the community, and therefore B is not the correct answer. C, Jonas, looking around anxiously, had seen others, adults as well as children, stop what they were doing and wait. This does not support the answer in any way, as it does not talk about the planes. It does say that Jonas was anxious, but it does not specify why. Therefore, the correct answer is A. Question number 3. How does Jonas feel about the plane flying over the community? Use textual evidence to support your answer. We already specified that earlier when we underlined that Jonas was frightened when he saw an unidentified aircraft. At the end of the story, it also says that his stomach churned and he had trembled. Using these underlined pieces of textual evidence, we can explain that Jonas was scared when the plane flew over his community. Jonas felt scared and frightened, and this is where we can insert our textual evidence. When an unidentified aircraft had overflown the community twice. We paraphrased in the beginning when we said that he was scared and frightened, but we directly quoted when we put when an unidentified aircraft had overflown the community twice. This is explicit evidence as it comes directly from the text. Our last question says, draw an inference from the following quotes derived from the text. Explain why you gathered what you did from these citations. The first quote says, leave your bicycles where they are. The second quote says, he saw only the abandoned bikes here and there on their sides. An upturned wheel on one was still revolving slowly. What do you think these quotes mean? There is no wrong or correct answer. It is what you gather from the quotes and what you can prove using them. What I gathered from these quotes is that the community mainly relies on bicycles for transportation. We see this especially with the second quote when he says he saw only the abandoned bikes here and there on their sides, especially because it comes after the quote of when he talks about how people would normally be doing their jobs in the community. The speaker of the community also instructed every citizen to leave their bikes where they were. Therefore, I am going to infer from these quotes that the community mainly relies on bicycles as their form of transportation. This can be derived from the quotes because it suggests all citizens use bicycles. And just like that, we've completed our activity on textual evidence. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you come back and learn some more. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and we will be back with more fun videos.